Hi, Troy here with Lithogen. This video is for one of my customers who is going to be using the PulseEkko 50 megahertz for the first time to do bathymetry over lake ice in the Arctic. So we want to go over the parts of the system so they can put it together and use it. They already have a Noggin 100 Ultra, so some of this will be a priori knowledge for them. So I'll mostly be pointing out the differences between the two systems. First, this is the system here. It's going to be going in a toboggan, so the antennas are actually probably going to be fairly close together, kind of like they are on the bench here. This is the DVL, the computer that records the data. It uses a fiber optic cable, which is fragile and breakable, so I'm including one spare. But be extra cautious with the fiber optic cable. It sucks when it breaks. There's also a GPS going with it, a geode, and that comes with a serial cable that's long enough that if you mount this on the toboggan, you can run the serial cable up. Ideally, in a perfect world, if you want the best data, you actually mount this up where the controller is, and then you just calculate the offset from the GPS to the device in the data processing side. But sometimes those extra calculations become a bit tiresome. So a lot of people will run the cable with the GPS all the way to the back, even though this cable becomes a GPR reflector and could potentially make your data not quite as good. So it's probably worth experimenting on the first day whether or not you want to do that, and then just sticking with whatever choice you make. There is a power cable, this yellow one, that comes out of the back of the console. It's just a screw-on cap. There's some notches in there so you can't install it backwards or something like that. There's only one place to install it. This power cable goes to a standard sensors and software GPR battery. They either come in the cloth cases or the hard cases. You may already have a couple of hard case batteries because of your Noggin system. Feel free to use them. I'm including one of the cloth batteries and the charger for it in the box, just in case you need a spare or you need to get set up or whatever. The geode has its own internal battery, so you have to turn it on. Additionally, I just included a bolt here. If you need to mount it on a toboggan or something, you can drill a hole in your toboggan and just mount it there. If you don't need the bolt, just put it in the case and we'll be happy to see it come back. This is the 50 megahertz antennas. One of them has a receiver on it. This is the Ultra receiver. It's a little bit larger, and the other one has a transmitter. Part of the advantage of using the PulseEkko is that it's got a separate transmitter receiver, so you can configure them in arbitrary geometries. The downside is that there's more parts, and that means that each receiver and transmitter has its own batteries. These batteries are accessed just by undoing these clips on the side, and if you're old enough, you will recognize these as a fairly standard camcorder lead-acid battery from the 1990s. Putting them in here, there's a spring for one terminal here and a spring on the gate. So you just kind of slot the battery in so that those terminals line up. Clamp them in. Easy peasy. The actual receiver and transmitter get attached to the antenna with similar clips. Those pins at the bottom are fairly delicate, so try to protect them. There is no right or wrong antenna for these things. However, I do try to line up the text on the labels so that they're all facing the same direction. So if you're reading it in this direction, read it in this direction here too. And also on the antennas, stick around the same sides. The chargers for those camcorder batteries are a little bit finicky. They're just a standard 12 volt charger, but they have kind of a weird clip on the end, and this clip is a little bit fragile, so be gentle with it when you're attaching it and removing it from the battery. Some of them you will see that I've already replaced this section of wire on here a couple times because people keep busting the clips. Try not to do that. We're going to send you a fairly comprehensive manual with it. So that should be in the box with you guys, should you end up outside of communications range. I'm going to fire it up now, and we're just going to look at the system. I already turned the GPS on. I wanted to give it time to get satellites. So both the transmitter and the receiver have a power button on them. A light will turn on if you have power and the batteries are good and making good contact. If you have no light, almost always it's battery. There's going to be a spare set of batteries in there, so you'll have 2 sets and you can swap them out. You can have one charging while you're using the other, depending on how far away from camp you are. This one here, light will flash as soon as you push it. That tells you it got power from the battery. It'll start booting up. Takes about 20 seconds to boot up. Again, if you're a noggin user, you will be used to this. On the side of this device, flagged here because I don't want you guys to lose it, there is a adapter for fiber optics. There's 2 places it can plug in. It doesn't matter which one you plug it into. But the fiber optics need to be attached to the receiver when you boot up. If it isn't attached and the receiver isn't on, it'll complain and it'll make you shut down and restart once everything's attached and turned on. Likewise, there is a set of fiber optic cables that goes, it's labeled TX here, it goes from the receiver to the transmitter. This cable is a lot shorter. This is going to be in your toboggan, just connecting the 2 of them. Try to do your best to preserve those cables. There is 1 spare for each of these cables, but yeah, be gentle. Do not put any tension on the cables, please. Thank you. I have pre-configured the system to a 50 megahertz configuration. This is what the configuration dialog looks like. As you can see, there's a lot of options here. The only one that we're going to have to change once you guys get the system is the antenna separation, because you'll have to measure this and figure out what it is on your system. Once you've installed it in your toboggan. Data dumping is the same as the noggin. You just insert a USB stick and it'll ask you if you want to dump, and you choose yes. Assuming everything's turned on, run system, we're going to go line scan. The first thing it's going to ask you is verifying configuration. It's recommended that the GPR be scoped prior to collection. Choose yes. Okay, so once the GPR has been scoped, this might not film very well, you'll see that the receiver starts flashing, and so does the transmitter. So it's actually pulsing. And this is like an oscilloscope in like an old electronics lab. You can actually see the waveform coming in here in real time. If I were to move the antennas, you'll see it move. There's a lot of metal in my workbench in my workshop, so I can cause it to move a little bit. Ideally, what you want to confirm is that this red line is right at the start of the first green swoop going up there. As long as that's true, you're good to go here. If it's not true, choose auto detect first break and just let the computer think for a minute or 3, and it will usually find it for you. Otherwise, you can manually adjust. I'm going to just do it for demonstration here. You can manually adjust where that red line is. Ideally, you just wanted it right at the first swoop there. That's a step that doesn't exist on the noggin. This is because we can change the length of the fiber optic cables, and thus we're actually changing the timing of the whole system, because the speed of light, it takes some time to go through the fiber optic cables and stuff. Prior to data collection, this is what the screen will look like, and I apologize for the bad film and the glare here. Let me see if I can resolve some of that. A little bit of improvement, maybe. One thing you're checking is if your external GPS signal is good. If you got green bars, you got good signal. The other thing is we've assumed a travel speed of 10 kilometers an hour, water velocity, so we pre-configured to 52 meters maximum depth. If you guys change the settings, you might find that that changes. We're going to hit scan. It says, requested trace interval is too fast. Would you like to run in continuous mode? Yes! Let's go. Alright, this looks very much like the Noggin 100 Ultra. You can see the data starts coming in here. You can change your zoom and your filters and things like that, your gain. You probably want to crank the gain all the way up or nearly if you're looking at water. This doesn't affect how the data is stored, just how it's displayed on the screen as you're collecting it. So if you're doing quality assurance, you can adjust some of these things and don't have to worry too much about it. I'm going to move the antenna around just to cause the data to move a little bit. Just, actually verifying that it's real. Yeah, it doesn't really change much here because we're looking down at the noise. Pause. Stop. I'm going to leave that line on there just as a test line and basically ship. So for shutting down, taking things apart, power button, yes. Ideally you want to wait for this little progress bar that's going to pop up on the screen to finish. But the system is designed to tolerate power failures, so in theory, if you just disconnected the battery or something like that, it would tolerate it. It's just, this is better. Less risk of problems. And then we're going to shut off both the transmitter and receiver and the GPS, and then basically just take everything apart and put it in the Pelican cases that you guys are going to get in the field. The 50 megahertz antennas come in these long tubes, so yeah, they're long. Okay, that's everything. I hope everything goes well for your survey, and holler if you need anything.